which is kind of why I've not used it for any live stuff yet. So this video is kind of a little bit of an introduction, prelude, whatever, to the next couple of kits that I'll be doing on the channel. Now, I realised a little while ago that I had managed to inadvertently, and definitely not by design, collate this little sort of sub-collection of non-wood kits. It was completely by accident, and I genuinely realised after I got them all that I had in fact, like, you know, all these little kits that I just hadn't realised that I'd been amassing. So I thought it'd be maybe interesting to give a little bit of context of like the sort of variances and differences that I can sort of hear and feel when I play these kits, just as a bit of fun, and as I said, a bit of a prelude really to the next couple of videos, which will feature two of these kits. So my history with like non-wood drums, and we're talking about drum kits here, actually goes back to about 2008 when I got this kit. Now, and this is actually an RCI acrylic kit. In 2007, I did a review of some RCI snare drums for MikeDolbeard.com, and I really liked them. It was the first time I'd actually done. It was the first time I'd actually had any real practical experience with acrylic drums. Years before that, I'd actually done a written piece on acrylic kits and drums in general, but I hadn't really had any sort of major prolonged experience with acrylic drums. So when I got the three snare drums, and I can't remember, I know there was a 14x7 which I really liked, and I think there was a 14x5, and I can't remember what the other size was, but I really liked them so much I put an order in for this kit. Now this kit is I'm gonna say is kind of very symptomatic of actually, well, three things actually. Two were trends and just one was a personal preference. But so the personal preference was, at the time I was very into 20-inch kick drums and smaller toms. Now I still am kind of into smaller toms as a preference, but because the kit basically runs 10, 12, 14, 20. I don't have a matching snare, but I do have a Coke bottle finished RCI snare as well. The thing with the toms and the kick drum, or at least the rack toms and the kick drum, with this kit is that, and this is very symptomatic of the era, I think, is that they were they were two elements with that. So the bass drum is 20x20, and that's without the hoops. That's just the shell. So it's kind of more 20x24, and I think that, you know, given the period with Travis Barker and all the other sort of guys of that point, and particularly Orange County drums and percussion, you know, I think there was a bit of a preference for silly large bass drums, and I remember sitting behind this bass drum in my mum and dad's dining room at the time, and sitting back and thinking, I can't see the end of this damn thing. It was the biggest bass drum I'd ever sat behind, and I think to date it still is the biggest, or the longest anyway, bass drum I have ever sat behind. It was huge. It subsequently got used to it, but it takes a little bit more air to sort of, you know, you have to push a bit more air, obviously, because you're pushing a lot further. So, but it's a good bass drum. It is a good bass drum. I remember taking it out to a rehearsal, and someone, well, I think it's one of the guitar players, asked me, did you actually mean to tune it to A? I hadn't, obviously, but like, you know, apparently it was tuned to A at the time. The toms are the other thing. The two rack toms I had made for me were 10 by 6 and 12 by 6, and I still to this day really like those sizes. This is the only kit I have with toms like that. I don't dig it out very often, but they do definitely have a sound, and they do definitely have a place, and obviously ergonomically, because they are quite flat, it's easier to you know, sort of position them kind of a little more where you'd want one. I don't really ever do over the kick drum. The bass drum, for obvious reasons, is undrilled. Not sure you really want a tom holder on a. I know they do them, but I'm not sure I would want a tom holder on an acrylic based drum. But you know, so they're short, shallow, fast, whatever you want to call them, toms, and I had those made by request, and they did that for me. The floor tom is a 14 by 14. As I said, it's very representative, I think, of the time and the trends, and also my personal preference at that point. I'm not sure if I've ever really done a full video on that kit. I think I've featured it in some early videos, and very early videos, but I don't know if I ever did a full video. But I will do one anyway, because I think it's a fun kit. It's nice to have, and it does sound good as well. So the next kit that I got was actually the red acrylic kit, the Crystal Beat, Pearl Crystal Beat. I think I got that in 2016. I want to say 16. It was soon after they came out. Now I saw and got quite excited when I did see that Pearl had reintroduced acrylic drums to its lineup, and the main thing that I very clearly remember thinking was cool, and what kind of attracted me to them was the fact that you could get traditional sized toms. I was less bothered about the kick drum, but the kick drums are 22 by 16. I have two 22/16s. But it was the fact that you could get standard size rack toms for the kit, and in fact, actually, the floor toms I think are an inch or two shorter. I think that's the I want to say that's the 14 by 12 maybe, and then 16 by, I think it's 16 by 14. I need to look it up to be sure. But the original kit I got was the 12, 14, 16, 22. Maybe the rock kit, sort of the rock setup. I subsequently sort of added. I actually added. So I couldn't be bothered to wait for the red to come back into stock, because, you know, best will in the world, I've got a lot of Pearl drums. I really like Pearl a lot, but their lead times on things are not what you might call desirable from a consumer point of view, and anyone that's tried to order or special order drums from Pearl knows exactly what I'm talking about. You're talking, if you're lucky, maybe short, maybe 6 months, but I've heard an awful lot longer as well. But I got the red kit, and then I wanted an 8 and a 10 while I could still get them, because as far as I remember at the time these were introduced, they were introduced as being a fairly limited edition. I'm going to guess that Pearl realised that they were onto a bit of a winner with that, and that's why you can still get them now. But so I got in my desire to expedite things, I actually got an 8 and a 10 in the yellow, which I think it kind of offsets it all nicely, to be honest. Then I got, wanting to sort of, for a little bit of completeness, I suppose, I went and got the 14 by 6.5 yellow free floater snare drum, and then more recently I've actually added a clear bass drum. So I actually have this sort of like jelly bean double bass acrylic kit, and at some point when I find both the motivation and the space, I will endeavour to actually set all of those drums up. I've had the full kit as was set up, and that was kind of fun. Yeah, I really like the fact that you can get those traditional size toms, and unlike what I did with the two Maple Star Classic kits, and possibly even the two Maple Masters kits, which I have. With these, whilst they're both acrylic, they're designed slightly differently, and there's no real sort of size duplication there. So sonically they are different. So it's, as I said, it's not a duplication thing, which is kind of cool. The next kit I got, which is kind of like a hybrid thing between the wood and the well, not wood situation, was actually the pearl wood fiberglass. Now that was a line that was only, again, it was actually introduced for a limited edition run. I think it actually lasted about sort of 18 months, 2 years in the end. I think it was 2016 to 2017, and it kind of sort of phased out. Maybe 2018 or so, but I got those drums mainly because I actually saw them, and I thought they looked cool physically, and I thought, well, I don't have anything kind of like that, and the thing with those is that they're made from Kapur, and so I didn't sort of have anything in Kapur at that time. I subsequently got a Yamaha Club custom kit, which is also Kapur, but that was for a multitude of different reasons, and it's sort of different sizes as well, to a degree. Yeah, maybe not that much of a degree, but anyway. But yeah, the wood fiberglass, I'm not wholly convinced you can hear that much of a difference in the sound of them. For those that don't know about the wood fiberglass, I mean, in contemporary terms, it's actually not a new concept from Pearl. It's something they did a long time ago, decades ago, and they sort of reintroduced that, as they've done with a lot of other things, actually before and after that. But basically, they're Kapur shells. They're fairly thin Kapur shells, and they have a hand-applied sort of sheet of fiberglass, and if you put your hand inside the shell, you can definitely feel the texture of the fiberglass. As I said, I'm not completely convinced on the fact that you can hear the sonic difference or the sonic change in the addition of the wood of the fiberglass to the wood. But hey, you know what? They're cool drums. I have the Satin Cocoa, whatever it was called. I'll probably put it up on the screen. To me, they look really cool. You know, it's a wood finish kit, but it's slightly different, and that kind of appealed to me. So I always, for as long as I can remember, thought that metal drums, actually those are the real metal. Cherry Rose Grand Star double bass kit. I don't really even play double bass drums, but you know. To me, there's very little more that says metal and 80s than a Cherry Rose Grand Star. I have to say that. But I always thought that metal drum kits were kind of cool, and I kind of always. I never really felt that much of a sort of affinity with the Ludwig versions that I saw from the 70s. In 2017, Mike Tolbear and I went to the Gaver headquarters in Germany. Now, Gaver is actually the European distributor for DW drums, and obviously everything related to DW drums these days. But when we were there, the first day we were there, we were given 3 DW kits to try out and review. The first one was the 45th anniversary, which, if you've seen that kit, you'll know how special it looks visually. It's lovely. It's a work of art. It's an absolutely lovely drum kit. Then we had the Purple Heart kit, and I subsequently bought a Purple Heart snare. But the Purple Heart kit, again, lovely. Physically, it's a very beautiful wood. And then we had the steel kit. and I don't remember exactly what the sizes were. It might have been 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. I've got a feeling it was, although I don't know if I've got photos of all of the drums set up, but I'm pretty sure that it was 3 up top and 2 on the floor. But we both played all 3 kits, and we both agreed that the kit we liked the most out of those 3 was, funny enough, the steel kit. And it's got, you know, it's got the DW lugs on it, and it's got the 3mm thick true hoops on it, and they're steel anyway, so I think they're pretty thick shells. So, you know, even the 8, or the smallest drum, it was really heavy for what it was. But I really loved those drums. I really did, and I was so excited to play them. And I think now, even though I've got a steel kit and I've got an aluminium kit as well, I think if I had the money, or rather if I didn't want one of these and I didn't want one of these, I would buy one and enjoy it immensely, even though, as I said, I've got a steel kit here. But it kind of increased my sort of subconscious resolve that I wanted to have a metal kit. So when Tama announced the SLP steel kit, I want to say about 2018 or so, I was really excited. I was excited because it looked great to me. It's matte black with, I'm looking over here wistfully because it's over here. Or at least the toms are here and the bass drum's over there. So I may go from here to here to here and looking lovingly onwards. But it's a matte black finish. It's got sort of black nickel hoops and hardware. And the shells are 1mm thick steel, so they're not particularly thick. But the thing with in fact, actually, there's 2 things with that kit. First of all, well, there's 3 things actually. First of all, it was affordable. It was about £1,600 at the time when they came out. Secondly, the toms are really warm, which is not really something you'd expect to hear when saying it's a steel drum kit. You wouldn't expect warm to be up there in one of the words that you would use to describe them, but I personally really find them to be quite warm sounding. And then the bass drum, here we are looking that way now, the bass drum is just, it's so warm and rounded, and it genuinely is one of my favourite bass drums that I own. I really love it, and in fact, the more I'm looking up at it, the more I'm thinking that I have to get them down and play them the next time I go out. They're just such wonderful drums, and I wouldn't have expected them to be that. I didn't expect them to be what they are when I got them. Because, as I said, steel, metal in general, you kind of associate. I mean, if you've got a collection of metal snare drums, or even if you've just got one metal snare drum and one wood snare drum, the obvious thing about metal is that it is brighter to a very obvious degree than wood. For obvious reasons too, but you know, so you would expect them to be much brighter and not as warm as wood drums. But I would stack them up. In fact, actually, as an example, I did a blues, a demo for a blues band in here in 2020, where I actually used that kit. And if you go back a couple of years, you'll find a couple of videos of me playing the drums for that demo. So yeah, they're just really warm drums. They're just and I just love looking at them, and I love setting them up and playing them. And the only thing that I didn't like about those drums was really the fact that, which is ironic now, that given the 2 kits I'm coming to, because basically all 3 of them share the same size configuration, 13, 16, 22. The bass drums are slightly, in fact, actually, I think maybe they're all slightly variant on those sizes, but all those depths, but they are basically 13, 16, 22. Much prefer a 12 if I was given the option. That's why I think. That's why I'm so fond. One of the many reasons I'm so fond of my club custom is the fact that that is actually 12, 16, 22. But you know, it doesn't matter. I've actually grown to appreciate a standard size 13-inch tom a lot more in the last few years, and actually, to be fair, I'm kind of less bothered about it now than I think I ever was. So hey, personal progress for me. That's good. But yeah, wonderful drums. But then I got looking on the internet again, which is generally a bad thing for me, because if you do sort of stuff, you kind of end up with a room full of drums. So earlier this year, in 2022, I was browsing the internet, and I check. I routinely do this like little circle of like shops and things every once in a while. If I'm sort of in the mood to noodle and look at drum shops, and I may have a slight sort of desire to lose some more money somewhere, and I checked one of the shops, and I will do this kit in a full review at some point. But I came across a Trick kit. Now, Trick, as you may be familiar, make the GS007 strainer and accompanying butt plate. And I've said many times that strainer is my favourite strainer. I think a couple of years ago, maybe in 2020, I bought from the same store. I bought a Trick copper snare drum, and I've come very close to actually getting the video I did for that out. But I think I did a pass on it and didn't really like it. And I think I'll probably end up doing I have actually shot video of the kit with that snare drum, and I subsequently scrapped it to a degree. But what I might do is I'll probably end up doing that again. I'll do it with the snare drum instead of doing them separately. But I bought that snare drum anyway. I really liked it. It's different, and it's just different enough to make it. It was just different enough to make it appealing to me. It's 14.6.5. It's 3mm thick copper, and I didn't have anything like that, and I quite like copper as a material. So I went back and I found this Trick aluminium kit. And I think I've got one or two photos of it, so I'll pop one up on the screen so you can get a feel for what I'm talking about. I'd get them out, but I'm not actually sure where I've put them. Well, the bass drum's there. The bass drum's behind the bass drum's behind the camera, but I'm not sure where the toms are. But it's in a lovely candy apple red anodized. Well, I say anodized. It's not. It's got some sort of. I'm not really sure what the finish is on it, but it's anodized red on the inside of the shell as well, which I thought was a nice, cool touch. It's different. It's 3mm thick aluminium shells, all of them. The aircraft grade aluminium, because that's kind of Trick's thing. The bass drum is 22 by. I want to say it's 22 by 14. And the bass drum, instead of having the usual sort of 1, 2, or maybe 3 little air holes, it's actually got air slits all the way around each panel on both sides. And I think it does a really nice job of dispersing the air. Now that one, the funny thing with that was it got delivered to me, and I very literally took it out the boxes in my hallway, put them in cases, and took them out the door and played them like there and then that night. And the bass drum, I've subsequently changed it, but the bass drum came with an Aquarian logo front head, which is basically a smooth white sort of thing, and a Super Kick 2 on the batter head. And again, And I'm starting to believe that this is a metal kick drum thing. Is the bass drum was again one of the most fantastic sounding bass drums I own and have played. I don't know how many kick drums I actually own. I'm not actually sure, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and this was definitely one of the best sounding and feeling kick drums that I own. Now, some kick drums. I mean, like the one I'm sort of sat behind here. I mean, this you can tell. Maybe not at the moment because this shotgun microphone is pointing at my chest and the bass drum is down there. But so how that came out, I'm not convinced is going to be any good for for making the point that I'm talking about. But some bass drums sound good out the front, which is ultimately the end goal. But like some sound good out the front, some sound good. On the batter side, and some just sound good full stop, both sides. And the trick kick is one of those. It sounded really good, the player's side to play, and I got a big thrill out of that because it was just so exciting to play something. It was such a big sounding kick drum, big, full. And the funny thing is, and I think it's subconsciously probably plays a part, is that I still have a Heyman kit, 26 by 14, 13, 16. It's another drum kit I've never featured on the channel in almost 10 years of doing this. But to be fair, I'm not actually convinced I've played the kit in the last 10 years. I came very close to. I think I've had the kick drum out, but I've not actually played that kit in a long time because let's face it, it's a 26 by 14 inch kick drum, and the majority of the last decade I was playing ska music, which doesn't really lend itself to a big boomy kick drum sound. But the trick kit. Because it's just the sound of that kick drum and the feel of that kick drum really remind me of that Heyman kit and that large bass drum, and it definitely feels like it is larger than it actually is. As I said, I have done some video for that. I may go with that, or I may just scrap it and do a whole new thing. I don't know yet. I'll make my mind up at some point, but. Fantastic kit, really is. It's a fantastic kit. I got it for a bargain price as well because it had been knocked down and then knocked down again, and I thought it kind of, I thought it was kind of a nice sort of value buy in that respect. So I haven't gigged it. But if I haven't gigged that kit, mainly because it brings out that sort of kind of feel to me. That I should be sort of trying to be playing sort of Led Zeppelin covers on it more than anything else. It's just got. I've talked about this before. Many, if not all, of these kits they speak to me in different ways. I'm sure you guys are the same with your drums as well. But that kit speaks to me in a very specific way, which is kind of why I've not used it for any live stuff yet. But that brings me on to this final kit. Now this is the Pearl phenolic kit, or phenolic kit. Still not worked out which one the correct pronunciation is. Now this I've done. That's better. Yeah, it's very white. It's very, very white. It's kind of like a white ripple sort of finish. I know Tama did something in the pretty much the same finish. But I've talked about the Pearl President Series Deluxe drums, which I got sort of earlier this year, and I think the tail end of last year. which they brought out in celebration of their 75th anniversary in 2021. I've talked about those and the fact that those drums have a very sort of specific feel and specific sound, and I'd kind of gone to the point where I got the snare drum thinking that I was never going to get the kits. Then I got the 22, 13, 16 kit, those sizes again. And really loved them. I thought, wow, I'd really love like a 12 and the 14 would be kind of cool too. And what I'm about, I might as well just buy the 20 as well. So I'll buy the other kit as well, because at that point when I got those, until about a week after I got the second kit, they were only doing them as the limited edition in those two kit configurations, or basically those two kit configurations. And of course, subsequently, Pearl have realised that they're onto a good thing, and rightly so. And now it's kind of more of a line and a thing, and they've got sort of different sizes added as well. But at the time, I saw actually the phenolic kit. One, my local store still has one, as far as I know. And I saw that and I thought, oh, wow, that looks really cool. And this phenolic thing, it's kind of, so the phenolic thing is and again, like the trick kit, I will do a full video. In fact, this will probably be the next video out of the two which goes up once I've finished, once I've shot it. These shells are basically made of a resin, and on that basis alone, they're kind of different again to what I've previously spoken about. It's not metal, obviously, and it's not acrylic either, and it's not fiberglass, and it's not like the old timer fiber star, which was again something else again. So and like I said, with a lot of the other things as well, this is not a new concept for Pearl. This is something that they were doing in the, I think, 60s and 70s or 70s, and they revived it for the 75th anniversary thing. And I have to say, I've not really been playing too much in the last sort of week or so, week and a half or so, but I've been jamming on this kit on and off for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 weeks, and I really love it. I got the snare drum separately. In fact, I actually got the snare drum from my local store. I didn't get the kit from the local store, but I've been jamming on these drums, and they are... All of the kits I've talked about have got a very specific vibe to me. The acrylic kits, for me, are kind of a sort of a modern sound, a clean sound, a sort of, there's a very obvious visual with the acrylic kits too. The steel kit has... as I said, it's got a very clear visual with the all black thing, and it kind of works nicely with black and or white cymbals too. But if you want to go really stealth with that kit, it's black drums and black cymbals. But the steel kit speaks to me in a way that's kind of like. I did actually use it for a bunch of the Scar gigs that I did. I don't think I've used it for anything since, other than the demo that I mentioned. But they have a kind of sort of contemporary vibe to them as well, but in a different way to the acrylics. I could use those steel kit. Well, I did use that steel kit for a blues thing. And I know I could be very happy using those steel drums for basically anything, I think. Now the trick kit, as I sort of touched upon, just by virtue of the vibe it gives off to me, quite a bright sound. It's much brighter sounding, I think, than the steel kit. It's brighter, it's loud, but at the same time, it's got that inherent sort of aluminium sound to it as well. I think aluminium is like my favourite metal material for drums. well, at least for metal drums, metal snare drums. But I really like the tone that they have. The vibe of that kit is very much, I think maybe I'd use that for a sort of classic rock type thing. I don't know if I mean, I could obviously use it for a more sort of contemporary pop rock type thing. I mean, given that I really only play covers these days, but it's the mindset thing, and I wouldn't, some of the more contemporary stuff, it just doesn't speak to me in that way. I'd be more happy using sort of that kit for that sort of stuff, the more contemporary pop stuff. But that it's kind of got this very sort of classic rock vibe to me. Now the wood fiberglass, which I mentioned as kind of like the hybrid, I would actually use that on anything. That was my main gigging kit for the ska band for a number of years, and I've got 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 on that particular kit, so I've got the sizes to kind of like work around that as well. But this phenolic kit, this has got a very definite vibe for me. And the thing is despite the fact that I would generally never play an acrylic or metal kit with a wood snare drum, because to me it just feels wrong. With the acrylic kit, I tend to either use the acrylic snare, or either acrylic snares, or metal snare drums. I know I did do actually something once with this kit and the funny enough, the timeless timber. I know I did that once, but generally I just, for me, it just doesn't work. And with the wood kits, with the metal kits, I just couldn't bring myself to use anything other than a metal snare drum for those kits. It's just something that just doesn't. It has to be metal. The metal with metal, acrylic with metal, or acrylic with. This one though. Oh, and with the wood fiberglass, actually, I would use either. I've got a matching snare drum for that, but this kit, this kit is different. This kit kind of, I don't play jazz. I can't play jazz, but if I did, I could be very happy using this kit for that type of music. Even though ordinarily I wouldn't use a sort of synthetic, again in my mind, a synthetic thing doesn't necessarily really work for the vibe of it. But this kit has got a lot of vibe. It kind of feels like, it kind of feels very vintage. Now I know you could say that the look of it, the wrap on it, kind of might give that sort of thing. And I would agree, it does. But there's something very warm and familiar, and I mean these are tuned up a little bit at the moment. These are kind of a little bit higher than I would, and the snare drum as well. So they're tuned up a little bit. Now I did have them tuned down, but to begin with, but I tuned them up a little bit just to sort of put them somewhere where I wouldn't normally play them and have them. And there's just so much vibe to them. As I said, they kind of got this like vintage vibe to them, and I couldn't use them for again, like the contemporary pop thing. I mean, it's not to say I wouldn't, but for me, they sit better in that sort of maybe a bluesy kind of jazzy, soul-y kind of vibe to them. But as I said, they really feel like the deluxe series. Actually, for me, they've got a real vintage feel to them. Now there was only 100 of these kits made worldwide, and I mean I don't know how well they sold, the fact that I know of 3 kits in the UK which are still for sale. I mean, they weren't phenomenally priced or anything. I mean, the retail on them was about, without the snare drum, the snare drum was just under £500 by itself, although it does come with a hard case as well, which will eat some of that cost up. But the drums were about 2,200. The 3 drums were about 2,200 when they came out. I do not believe, well, I think one of the 3 places I know of still selling them, maybe close to that. I got this for a reduced price, significantly lower than the 2.2. And then one of the other stores, in fact the store I got the trick from, subsequently have lowered the price on their kit to slightly less than what I paid for this one. But these have such a great vibe to them, and I wouldn't have necessarily thought that it was possible to have a synthetic kit which gives off so much of a vintage vibe to me. This feels every much as vintage in its vibe to me as the Deluxe series and also my Slingerland kit. And actually the Sakai trilogy as well. That was the other kit I was thinking of. They all feel really vintage to me, which I think is ironic, given that I've owned all except for the Slingerland, which is older than I am. That's a 1964. All of the other kits I've had since brand new. So it's weird that you can get, and that a company can make such good shells out of a synthetic material, and then they exude such a vintage feel and vibe to them that kind of like I would struggle to you know, do anything, maybe make any contemporary sort of, you know, pop or rock music on them. I mean, these good, they go down low. They go down low just fine. You could probably use sort of classic-y rock stuff on them, but it just, to me, it just wouldn't feel right. These are sitting very much more in the sort of, you know, jazz, blues, soul kind of. Well, I don't know, feel really more than anything else. But you know, as I said, this will probably be the next video that goes up, full playing demo of these. But until then, hopefully it won't be another few months. I'm planning to do that in the next few days or next week or so. So hopefully, fairly soon, you will see some more playing, more drums, and I can get back on track with things. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that was interesting. I think it was interesting. It was interesting for me to look at it anyway. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.